The Crimson Tide has once again ascended to the top of the college football mountain. Their 5th national championship in 9 years, their 17th overall.
But welcome to Worn Out Sports, episode number 2. We are now 2 weeks into the football season, and some teams look really good, some teams are not back, some teams were disappointments, and some teams were shockers. So we're going to look at what I missed, what I got right, and the matchups that are meaningful this coming Saturday. Well, I was right. Let's go with my right ones first. Alabama versus Louisville, not a shock there. Alabama met the spread. I said we'd probably win 45-20. We ended up winning 51-14. There were moments where Alabama looked really, really good. I'm a little worried about linebacker play, losing wide receivers when they're cutting across the middle. I'm a little worried about defensive line play, not getting, at times, not really getting really good pressure. I'm a little concerned about the offensive line, to be honest with you. Didn't really open up a lot of really great running lanes. Tua was sacked right out of the gate. But there were a lot of bright spots. Damian Harris looked good. Najee Harris looked good. Josh Jacobs looked good. Brian Robinson looked good. A whole stable of running backs. All the wide receivers looked good. And a name I haven't even heard was Waddle. Yeah, it's a weird name. But man, he's going to be a dynamic punt returner. He looked really good. We scored in almost every facet of the ball game. We scored defensively on a pick six. We scored in the air, on the ground. We had a kickoff return. Would have had a punt return if it wasn't for one of many penalties that we got. I was beginning to wonder if the officials were getting paid by the flag, because they made that third quarter feel like it was 2 hours long. And apparently no one in Louisville can count to 11. All right, because they had like at least 3 substitution penalties in a half. I don't think I've ever even seen that. Constantly having too many men or not enough. It's like nobody knew where to go. So, it's not Louisville's not they don't have a great defense. Their offense was okay. So it's not really a big test. That won't come for another couple of weeks. So I was right on that one. I was right on the Auburn-Washington game. Defensive struggle. Neither offense looked good. Washington had chance after chance after chance to open up the game and could not score inside the red zone. I don't know if Auburn's defense is that good or Washington's offense is that bad or a combination of the two. So we don't really know yet. One game doesn't usually tell us that. And I think that one of the worst play calls that I saw was when Washington, I think they might have been on the 5 or the 6, tried to run an option play. That is like you don't understand the defensive line you're facing when you try to run an option play that close to the goal line. And so Washington pretty much played itself out of the playoffs because the Pac-12 is so weak. Even if they run the table, I don't think they can get in, and I don't think Washington will run the table. So we'll have to wait and see. So where I was wrong, I was so wrong on the LSU-Miami game. Miami is terrible. Terrible. And now, I don't think LSU is that good. I just think Miami is that bad. Defensively, LSU looked really good at times. But that new quarterback, he didn't have 150 yards passing. So you still don't have an offense. Fortunately, your defense is good, and your field goal kicker can hit anything. They have like 4 field goals, and they had a pick 6. That was enough points to beat Miami without any of the other no passing touchdowns, so I'm not taking Ed Orgeron off the hot seat yet. They jumped up, I think, 10 spots to number 15 in the poll, but LSU's not back. Don't get too excited, LSU fans, about that. I like the fact that every SEC team won except Tennessee, who got embarrassed by West Virginia. I thought they would give West Virginia a little bit more run for their money. Apparently not, and still has no offense. And now they have very poor defense. So I mean, Jeremy Pruitt is going to have to get some athletes there and give him a couple of years to get it right. The other one I was off on, I picked Michigan to beat Notre Dame. I said before I hate both teams, so I don't care who won. I was satisfied with whoever lost. I think Jim Harbaugh's seat got a little warmer. But I will say this, you put Jim Harbaugh on the hot seat. He's a proven winner. Everywhere he's coached, he's a proven winner. If you don't have him as coach at Michigan, who do you replace him with? Can you name me 3 coaches that you would deem as good or better than Jim Harbaugh that are available? What, Nick Saban, maybe Urban Meyer? Who do you have? And so it's like Michigan's in a kind of conundrum. If we get rid of him, who are we going to replace him with? So, the season, it may be long. Shea Patterson was not the answer. The problem with Michigan was, and it's still the problem, is you don't have an offensive line that can block. Your defense is fine. It took you a couple of series to adjust to Notre Dame's offense, but once you did, you basically kind of shut them down. But offensive performance by Michigan is still abysmal. So it's going to be a long season. Another one I was off. Let's see. I was off on the Miami game. I was off on the Michigan game. And I can't remember who I was off on the third one. Well, I said FAU may give Oklahoma a run for its money. Nah. No, they were outmatched in every aspect of that game. Oklahoma was bigger, they were faster, they were just a better athletic team, and I think Kiffin may have a quarterback problem. He didn't have the little bit of the game I saw. He had wide receivers that were open, they just kept getting overthrown. And it's hard to run against a team that probably outweighs your defensive line by 50 pounds per player. So, I was a little off on that one too, so not a good week. Well, let's talk about some things that are coming up this week. I can't remember if it pops into my head who the other one was. I'll bring it up, but for the life of me, I can't think of it. All right, the first game. These are matchups that matter this week. First one is USC versus Stanford. Now, of course, Washington's loss has no bearing on the Pac-12 conference. But as far as the who's going to win the conference, but these two teams could potentially be right there in the mix of it. The problem with USC is they have basically like a 17-year-old quarterback, 17-year-old quarterback, and so when you start getting into the real teeth of your schedule, you're gonna see a lot of inexperience there. I don't think USC is. I've picked them to be good for the last 3 years, and they've just been garbage, and so I'm not picking them this year. I'm going to take Stanford in this game. Do I think Stanford could go toe-to-toe with Georgia or Alabama or Clemson in the playoffs? Not at all. I don't think anybody in the Pac-12 could beat any of the teams that were in the playoffs last year. None of them. And so I don't think that I think that still holds true. But I'm going to pick Stanford to win this. I'll say 24-13. Well, let's go with the next pick, Florida versus Kentucky. Now you say, well, why is this a matchup that matters? Well, it's an East game. This is sort of a slugfest. Kentucky's come so close from beating Florida many, many times, and Florida's managed to snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. And where Kentucky's managed to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory many times. I don't think this one will be close. I think Florida will win probably by 2 touchdowns. It'll be close early in the game, but I think Dan Mullen and the Gators are going to be too much for Kentucky. It's a better game than what Florida played this past week. It's a tougher team, a tougher defense, so they're starting off that SEC play, so it's good to start off on the right foot, make a statement, and whatnot. But I'm picking Florida to win this one. I'm going to say 31-17 Florida. So go Gators on that one. All right. Here's an interesting matchup: is Penn State versus Pitt. Penn State got off to a horrible start. Got into a slugfest with Appalachian State. Almost got Michiganed by that team. And, it's not offensive problems, even though I think Penn State should have scored 35 points in the first half. They have massive defensive problems. And so Pitt is the giant killer. It doesn't matter how good or bad Pitt is. They managed to raise up like a zombie in a grave and grab a good team and pull them down into defeat. They've done it with Clemson before. I think it was Pitt. Was it last year, year before last? They ended Oklahoma State's run. For the playoffs, and I'm going to take Pitt in this. I think Pitt is going to. Now, James Franklin's a great coach, and he won't get out-coached necessarily, but something's wrong. Saquon Barkley's gone. Penn State's quarterback has not impressed me, and I think Pitt is going to get them, and I think it's going to be somewhere 34-31 Pitt. So that's my upset. Now we have an interesting matchup, ACC versus SEC with Clemson and Texas A&M. Poor Jimbo Fisher apparently didn't even know when he took the Texas A&M job that Clemson was on the schedule for this year, and he can't get away from Dabo Swinney. Dabo's been kicking his rear end in the ACC, and Saturday he's going to kick his rear end in the SEC as well. I think Texas A&M, even though it's at College Station, I'm going to take Clemson in 14. I don't see now. Texas A&M has got a really good defensive coordinator. I think it's the guy from was it Texas's? I think Texas's defensive coordinator may have went there. I can't remember, but he's supposed to be really, really good. And that's been Texas A&M's Achilles heel, is they couldn't stop anybody. Yeah, at times they could score a lot of points, but they had a lot of points scored on them, and so there's still a quarterback issue. We really just don't know what Texas A&M can do. I just don't think they're going to be able to stand up against Clemson's defensive line, and I don't think they're going to be able to contain that quarterback. So I'm going to go 34 again. No, let's go 35-21. Let's go 35-21. Clemson. All right, Dabo getting a big win over an SEC team. Now, to me, this next game is the game of the week, and that is Georgia-South Carolina. This is a big game for the SEC East. This, to me, is the only team in the East right now that is a legitimate challenge to Georgia. Florida's still rebuilding under Mullen. Tennessee, of course, we saw how they're nowhere near being back. And this is it. If Georgia gets by this team, there's nobody else in the East that should beat them. Florida can do it, and Florida's the only other team that can do it. But it's going to be interesting. Jake Fromm's going to have a pretty good game. We'll see. Because Muschamp's going to have a defense dialed up for them. Georgia has the better athletes, so we're going to have to just see. But I'm gonna take Georgia in this game. I'm going to go 27-24 Georgia. It's going to be close. I just think that South Carolina's defense gives out at the end of the game, and Georgia comes. I think Georgia's going to be behind a little bit and then regroup and manage to take South Carolina down. So there's my 5 matchups for this week. Let me know if you agree, disagree, like, don't like. If you do like, please subscribe. That's it. Worn out.